What would an audio excellence video be without an unboxing? And I'm suffering from withdrawals because we haven't done one in quite a while. So anyway, we have a pair of Sonus Faber Maxima Amators to unbox. Now, it's actually the first time we've actually unboxed one, even though we've actually had some before, but we just forgot. Anyway, my lovely assistant, Vanna Curtis White, is going to actually do the hard work because I somehow injured or re-injured my forearm. So while he's doing all of this, I will tell you some of the details. So go ahead, unbox it from the front here. The Maxima Amator is a part of the Heritage series. The Maxima Amator is the top of the line. It's a floor-standing speaker. The model below that is called the Electa Amator 3, which is a stand-mounted speaker. There used to be one called the Minima Amator, but they've discontinued that. This new one that's replaced it called the Concertino. And that's also a reimagining, if you will, of the original Concertino. Now, all these speakers, with the exception of the Maxima Amator, are an homage to earlier models. Way back, Sonus Faber speakers were unusual in that they were made out of solid blocks or solid wood. So in the case of a lot of Sonus Fabers, they were walnut. And the Electa Amator, the original one, if I remember correctly, was the first speaker that truly made Sonus Faber successful. Countries from all over the world started to order the speaker, and Sonus Faber became a real company as a result of that. So for their, I can't remember if it was like the 30th anniversary or the 25th anniversary, they decided to reintroduce the new version of these speakers. Now, tonally, the main difference between the Heritage speakers and the current generation of Sonus Fabers is that they're a bit of a throwback to the original Sonus Faber sound. Warm, inviting, rich, certainly warmer sounding than the current series of Sonus Fabers, which are more neutral. They're more forgiving. They've got a plumpier bass sound. The highs are sweet but very extended. The major difference between the current versions of the Heritage speakers is that they're capable of playing louder and more dynamically than the earlier versions. The earlier versions are very sweet and forgiving, and they couldn't really play big jazz, hard rock, classical, large classical, and so on. But for voices, violins, small ensembles, small jazz ensembles, they were absolutely beautiful. So, and of course, the new Sonus Faber speakers, while they still have wood, they're more wood veneer based around MDFs and composite materials, whereas these are actual solid cabinets, solid wood blocks, and so on. So Curtis has removed this speaker, and as you can see, this is the bottom. This is what they call the Markinia marble. And it's quite gorgeous. I thought they'd be more black, but this is, what would you call, charcoal, grayish, streaks of white, absolutely beautiful. And then of course, look at this. Again, it's at the bottom. Nobody needs to see it. This is one of the things that I really appreciate about Sonus Faber. Despite the fact that there are surfaces and parts that most of us will not really think about, Sonus Faber cares. So here's a plate that, again, they could have easily made it out of regular aluminum or even any kind of a material. They chose to go with this beautiful finished gold, and then you've got this beautiful stainless steel bolts that attach to it. Same thing with the base where the spikes are going to go into. Just tiny little details that truly show that the company thinks about every little detail. Same with the marble base. The marble could have been easily squared. Instead, you've got a round radius around the sides here. All right, so let us finish unboxing this. You can just. So the speakers are covered with this cloth sock to protect the finish. And wow, look at that. So I don't know whether or not the camera is going to show off how beautifully finished the walnut is, but this is absolutely gorgeous. It's a satin finish, so you can see the open pore and the grain beautifully. It's not finished in high lacquer, again, because previous original Sonus Faber products that these are based on were not finished in high gloss, so they chose to keep the same look. Yeah, let's put this down. Now in the Heritage series, the predominant materials are metal, wood, and natural organic materials, as Sonus Faber would like to call them. You see leather covering the whole front. This is paper pulp, and that's a silk dome tweeter. So it's a simple two-way, simple in air brackets. The cabinet enclosure is actually separated into 3 chambers, as I understand it. The bottom part of it is filled with a material that helps to lower the resonant frequency of the cabinet to minimize the distortion and resonances. And then, of course, you have the upper chamber as well. I'm not sure whether or not the tweeter and the mid-range woofers are in one chamber, or the mid-range has its own chamber. That's something I'll have to look into a bit later. And then, of course, there's a big port here. So I guess maybe it's not. I think that the tweeter and the mid-range woofer are actually in one chamber, because the port is more for the mid-woofer as opposed to the tweeter. The tweeter is always sealed at the back. And then the back, and then the back, you can see that there is a window that shows the crossover, and that has its own chamber. And that, by the way, is external to the rest of the cabinet. This has its own chamber, so that the crossover cannot be interfered with regards to the vibrations or magnetic field of the drivers. So quite beautiful. This one of the first companies that started doing that was Wilson Audio, at least as far as my memory goes, and I really love seeing that. It's reminiscent of, for those of you who like cars, when Ferrari went to the 360 Modena, and the engine cover had this big piece of glass, so you could see inside, see the beauty and sexiness of the engine. So it's sort of the same thing. So, and then the binding post is quite nice. It's beautifully finished in the same gold tone as the rest of the metal. And you'll see also it's carried through here. There's this metal inlay that goes around the speaker. So it picks up these kinds of design cues. Again, very unique in the sense that most other speaker companies, for the same kind of price, will just basically make a good, workable enclosure that looks nice, certainly looks nice, but doesn't have the same kind of aesthetic flair and design cue and care that the designers at Sonus Faber put into it. As an example of the side, a side block, I guess I want to call it, it's rounded, but it's also shaped to like a funnel. Again, something that's not easy to do, but the company chooses to do these kinds of things because it's important to them. Similarly, in the front here, they've got this diamond facet right at the front here, and then it goes and it curves around here to exaggerate, if you will, or to showcase the mid-range woofer and then the tweeter. And if you look at even the something called the damped apex dome, so this is a Sonus Faber patent. They discovered a number of years ago that, well, let me just back up a little bit. Silk dome tweeters sound absolutely beautiful. They're very natural. They have this very sweet but very extended sound. The problem with silk domes is that inherently they're not very strong. So when you start playing at very high frequencies, they start tailing off very quickly because they don't have the rigidity for the tweeter to go much higher. And over the years, many manufacturers of silk dome tweeters have found workarounds. If you look at some of the earlier speakers from Sonus Faber and others that use silk dome, you will see that at the tip of the dome, you have this point, almost like a nipple. And that was to try and strengthen and make the silk dome more rigid. And it works that way. The problem, as was discovered, was that it lost some of its musicality. And I remember talking with Paolo, who was one of the chief designers at Sonus Faber many years ago. And he told me that one day, by accident, they discovered that if they had a tip that touched the very apex of the silk dome, it would do the same thing as that nipple, so that it basically, how would you say, it's almost like when something is vibrating, like let's say this cabinet was vibrating like crazy, and you put your hand on top of the cabinet, a lot of the vibration gets damped very, very quickly. And so it's the same kind of idea. And by doing that, this, what they call damped apex dome, the silk dome now stops distorting at, say, 12, 13, 14,000 kilohertz, and it actually allows the tweeter to extend much higher. In this case, Sonus Faber specifies it up to over 35,000 cycles. So, brilliant, but very elegant solution. If you look at their earlier silk dome tweeters if you looked at the Sonettos or the Luminas, you'll see it's just a basic triangular structure that holds the arrowhead to touch the silk dome. In this case, they've gone to the trouble of making it very aesthetically pleasing, in my opinion. It looks almost like a fan, so it flares out at the base here, and then it narrows to the tip over here, right at the point of the tip of the silk dome. There's a little tiny arrowhead that just makes a contact to the silk dome, and that's what that does to allow for the high frequencies to extend. So that's why Sonus Faber tweeters not only have that beautiful silk dome sound, which is very sweet and very nice and airy, but it also has this incredible extension that a typical silk dome tweeter cannot do. And if you start playing very high frequency information, you can actually measure that the distortion, and in fact the tweeter will start falling off very quickly, not in the case of the Sonus Faber. So these are the kinds of little details that Sonus Faber does that a lot of people don't realize, and unless you take a look at it very carefully, you won't notice. I've pointed out some of them here. Anyway, so let me give you some specifics about these speakers. As I mentioned, they're top of the line. For this series, it's $16,000 US. Manufactured, designed, handmade, hand polished, hand finished in Italy. It's a two-way, as I've said. 88 dB sensitivity, so relatively sensitive. 35 to 35 kilohertz, 4 ohms, and it's 83.8 pounds. So anyway, that's the speaker. We're gonna start plugging it in and breaking it in, and hopefully do a quick first impressions for you as well. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.